She fell in love with a stone-cold killer.
Greg gets in the car, not realizing that he was shot, and the kid in the back seat was dead.
He walked away with the prize, which was Linda.
And then discovered he was leading a double life.
Oh my God, are you a rat?
What do you do when you're caught in the crosshairs of a mob war?
If I don't come back and anything happens, here's money, and here's a ticket, a one-way ticket back.
When you're married to the mob, you don't ask and you don't tell. Until now. Some women choose a life of crime. Others are born into it. 7-year-old Linda Diana gets her first taste of mob life in a colorful Brooklyn neighborhood in the 60s.
My grandmother used to have a house, and all the guys used to go back there and have crap games and take numbers. In fact, my grandmother took the numbers and she used to pick up the numbers at church at 6 o'clock in the morning. I used to hand them to all the guys in the room.
Because Linda grew up in a family where, her grandmother was running numbers, she was part of that life as a child. She stepped right into it at a very early age, which so many of those girls from those neighborhoods were brought up around these wise guys, their families were involved, so it became normal for them.
By age 17, Linda is a regular at local mob hangouts. She's having an affair with a married man, Larry Pistone, a made guy in the Gambino crime family. But all that changes one night in 1963 when she meets a man named Greg Scarpa.
How are you?
Good. You gonna introduce me to your friend?
Of course.
And in walked this very handsome man.
Hi.
Wanna dance?
Okay.
Are you gonna introduce me? Meaning to me. And I said, oh, wow. He says, you have the most beautiful black eyes. He says, they're like olives, black olives. He says, can I have your number? Now, I'm dating Larry Pistone at the time. And I says, you know what, Greg? I'll call you.
Linda doesn't call, at least not right away.
What's going on? Everything okay?
But just 2 nights later, after she and Larry have a bad argument, she jumps in a cab and races to Greg's side.
And I went in there and I told Greg what had just happened. Now, all of a sudden, I hear a hornet beeping outside.
Larry! What are we gonna do?
And I looked out and I said, oh, Greg, it's Larry.
Get in the car, Linda!
Larry said to me, Linda, get in the car. And I said, no. So Greg said she's coming with me. And all of a sudden I see Greg bending down under his seat. So I said, don't do that, Greg. I said, he's a gangster.
Afraid of how Larry might retaliate, Linda jumps in his car. Little does she know, it's Larry's life she just saved. Because Greg Scarpa is a stone-cold killer. As a captain of the rival Colombo crime family, Greg is the chief enforcer of the notorious Godfather Carmine Persico. Known as the Grim Reaper, Scarpa terrifies fellow mobsters. He's powerful, charismatic, and a huge moneymaker for the mob. 2 days after the altercation, Greg tells Linda there's going to be a formal sit-down between the Gambino crime family, representing Larry, and the Colombos, representing Greg.
Over me.
Everybody knows why we're here. We're here to resolve.
Suddenly, this girl from Brooklyn is in the middle of a deadly tug-of-war between 2 vicious mobsters.
A lot of times when you're called to a sit-down, you don't leave. You get killed right there on the spot. So you had 2 wise guys who were arguing about, I want this girl, and the other guy was like, oh, I want that girl. In this case, because of who Greg Scarpa was and because of his position, his status in the family, he walked away with the prize, which was Linda.
Now that Linda is officially Greg's, he treats her like a queen, with a lifestyle befitting a mob mistress.
Had my birthday at the Copacabana, There was Joe Colombo there, a whole bunch of good fellas sitting at the table.
Oh my God.
And I'm getting all these beautiful gifts. It was all about me. Whatever made me happy is what he did.
So often, the wives are the ones who got screwed. They got nothing. The girlfriends got so much.
Everyone feared him. To me, I couldn't understand it because he was like a sweetheart. I mean, he did everything. I mean, he was great. Caring, giving to those he loved. But if you did him wrong, he would kill you.
By 1964, Linda is settled, loving her life as a gourmet. Greg stops for a meeting. Linda gets her first glimpse of the dark side of this glamorous life.
And then I'm sitting across the street in the car, and Greg went in the car with the other guy, and he's got his arm around the guy, you know, and then all of a sudden, and I'm just sitting there, but
Linda just witnessed her first mob hit, but Greg is no ordinary enforcer. He has a dangerous secret, one that could easily get him and Linda killed.
I have to tell you something. He says, but don't think the wrong way about it, you know. So I says, what? So he says, you know, I'm working with the FBI.
It's true. Greg was recruited by the FBI after an arrest for armed robbery in 1962. To avoid prison, he's been working as an informant. Greg Scarpa is a rat.
So I says, oh my God, are you a rat? You know, because I thought, and he said, no. He says, I do work for them. He said, in fact, I have to go to Mississippi, and I want you to come with me.
It's no ordinary freelance job. It's 1964, and when 3 civil rights workers disappear in Mississippi, the FBI pegs a group of Klansmen as their prime suspects. Hoover and the FBI enlist Scarpa to do what they can, get the KKK to talk, no matter what it takes.
I think the reason that Hoover picked Greg for the Mississippi trip, well, it's twofold. For one thing, they knew that Scarpa had balls as big as an elephant, that he would do anything.
Reservation?
And they also knew that there was no way it was ever going to reflect back on the FBI. Nobody was going to believe that Scarpa was doing that for the FBI. I mean, it was unthinkable.
One of the FBI agents that I had already met knocked on the door and came in and gave Greg a gun.
I don't come back this money and take it like home.
I had so much confidence that I feared nothing with him. Like, you know, he could do anything.
Greg delivers. He kidnaps a Klansman and tortures him until he reveals the gruesome fate of the civil rights workers. Mission accomplished.
You came back! Oh.
Aside from the money he was paid to go down there, these kind of things to Greg was like medicine. It would let his adrenaline.
Everything all right?
Great.
Okay, bye-bye.
Back in New York, Greg feels untouchable with the FBI as a secret partner. But Linda is tired of being strictly a mistress. She wants more.
I wanted to get married. I wanted my own family, my own kids. So what I did is, I told Greg, listen, I'm gonna just meet somebody and marry them.
Linda is about to hatch a bizarre scheme, and Greg agrees to go along with it. For now. After being the mistress of mobster Greg Scarpa for 4 years, Linda Diana is desperate to get married and have children. Since Greg won't leave his wife, Linda finds a willing substitute.
He was just the insurance guy, but he was a waiter in the pancake house where I went for breakfast.
Linda eventually marries Charlie, but their honeymoon is short-lived.
Even though I was married to Charlie, I was out every night with Greg. Same routine. And we'd have dinner, and then we'd get a room, and we'd spend the night, you know. But Charlie just wasn't, he just, like, never said anything. I guess I picked the right one.
All of Linda's scheming finally pays off.
I wore Greg out, like, you know. I finally got pregnant, and I had my daughter.
Greg seems to have it all. Not one, but two families, and the allegiance of both the mob and the FBI.
Scarpa had carte blanche. He could go out and continue to commit crimes, continue to kill people, work his way up to become one of the most powerful people in the Colombo crime family without ever having to worry about the major thing that most of these guys worry about is getting arrested. Greg wasn't worried about that at all because he was working for the FBI.
The FBI is here again.
Come on, I thought you could bring that.
I didn't.
The FBI is here again.
And I remember one time when the FBI came over,
I got something good for you guys.
and they're sitting in the living room, he puts a movie on. And the movie was The Godfather.
It's a magical time for the couple. To Greg, Linda is more than a mistress, more than the mother of his child. She's his partner in crime.
They did a robbery at an airport, and Greg says, we got to use the house to bring the stuff. I said, all right, just give me some stuff.
I love it on you.
A lot of times with these wise guys, they keep the wife separate, they keep the kids separate, but their girlfriends, the Gamadas, know more about what the guy might be involved in.
When Linda has a son with Greg, her husband Charlie moves out. Then Greg breaks mob tradition, leaves his first family, and moves in with Linda. She's ecstatic.
Oh, I was so happy. I just felt so secure and so safe with him, like nothing could ever happen to Greg Scarpa.
But something does happen to Greg Scarpa, something no one would ever imagine. After years of living with Linda, raising their two kids, and even becoming a grandfather, Greg gets seriously ill. In 1987, he is diagnosed with a bleeding ulcer and needs a massive blood transfusion. Since it's the height of the AIDS epidemic, Greg insists on using his own mob crew as donors.
He got all the guys from the club to come down, and family. It was like 30 people that gave their blood. One of them was HIV.
The timing couldn't be worse. When Scarpa's boss, Colombo Godfather Carmine Persico, is jailed, a power struggle erupts between Scarpa and underboss Vic Orena. Linda's family is in grave danger.
One day, Greg was leaving the house. My daughter was going out with the baby, Frey. Greg pulled away, and Linda was behind him.
It's a classic mob hit.
And Linda comes screaming in the house. I think Daddy's dead, Ma. I think Daddy's dead. And she's screaming. Because I was upset. I didn't even realize what the hell happened. And then I see Greg run in.
Although no one is injured, Greg breaks down. The Colombo family civil war is no longer just business. Now it's personal.
Greg just flipped that they almost did this to his daughter. I mean, I had 5 shotgun holes in my car on the baby's side. That's how crazy they were.
Greg spends every waking moment plotting revenge against Orena's crew. And every night, he goes out hunting. leaving Linda to wonder if he'll ever come back alive.
Scarpa was not like a lot of these bosses who would sit back and have one or two guys who were the trigger men and say, all right, go out and whack this guy, go out and shoot this guy. Scarpa would get in the car himself. Scarpa was the machinery behind that war.
A year of civil war begins taking its toll on Greg. His health is in rapid decline, and the feds can no longer ignore his indiscretions. He's charged with murder and racketeering. The judge allows him to go home on house arrest. But Linda quickly learns home is no safe haven.
And then he took his hand out, and he just had this big hole. He was shot through the nose, and it took his eye out.
Linda Shiro has gone from mistress to mom, raising the infamous Greg Scarpa's children. Now, while he's home dying of AIDS, she also becomes his nurse.
Yeah, but when can you have it, buddy?
When their 17-year-old son Joey gets in trouble on the streets, the family attempts to hide it from Greg.
Joey told the kid, don't tell my father, because Greg was pretty bad then. He had dementia, in and out.
You believe those two punks pulled a gun on Joey?
No, they didn't pull it.
What?
No.
They think I'm sleeping.
Quick.
They think I'm a ghost.
Quick, get back in the house.
Well, that was it.
Dad, I will take care of it. I will.
I'm begging you, please,
Stop.
please lie down. Look at you, you're sick.
Nah, come on, let's go. Come on, let's go.
I mean, nobody pulls a gun on my kid.
The Grim Reaper is a loose cannon. Everyone is in danger.
That Scarpa would go out and have a shootout in the street with these punks. I mean, that in and of itself is insane, especially when you're thinking the guy's on home arrest.
Greg gets in the car, not realizing that he was shot. He didn't know he was shot. And the kid in the back seat was dead.
Somehow, Greg manages to drive home to his family.
What happened?
Don't touch me. Don't touch me. Don't touch me.
Where's Joey, Dad? Where's Joey?
Oh my God, Greg! Greg! Come here.
He was shot through the nose, and it took his eye out.
Sit right there, you gotta sit down.
Linda knows she'll have to deal with the cops, but first she needs to get Greg to the hospital.
I called Larry, his friend Larry. I said, Larry, Greg was shot. You got to take him to the hospital. And Greg's saying, what are you talking about? You know, I says, he still couldn't comprehend that he lost an eye. Larry was there in 2 seconds. They left. Greg walked out. Larry tried to help him. He moved his arm, walked down the stairs, and walked up the block with no eye and blood gushing out.
By the time Linda gets to the hospital, Greg is surrounded by U.S. Marshals. Linda makes one final plea.
Can't you do that thing where you could send him home to die? I said, at least he could die. You know, he'll be around his family. The prosecutor said, well, could he move his finger to shoot a gun? The doctor says, well, what are you talking about? He can move his fingers, but can't get out. 2 days after that, I get a phone call that night. He died in jail.
After 30 years together, Greg is gone. But his violent ways are not forgotten. The ghost of Greg Scarpa continues to cast a shadow on Linda and her family.
When I talk about Joey, I just lose my train of thought.
For more information on the Scarpa family, go to investigationdiscovery.com. Greg Scarpa, the Grim Reaper, dies at the age of 68. His second family picks up the pieces.
The dysfunctionality of these families at that point is just off the radar.
Greg's son, Joey, follows his father's bloody footsteps. He rips off a dope dealer who is protected by a made guy. Joey is now vulnerable to mob justice, and the Grim Reaper is no longer there to protect him.
He says, Ma, don't worry. Vinny's father has it under control. I says, Joey, I've been in this life for like 30-something years. Do you know what that means, Joey, when they have it under control? They kill you. No, Ma, and he was hugging me. Don't worry, he's taking care of it.
The next day, Joey is shot and killed.
You think back and you think of the good, but when you think of what happened and what could happen in that kind of a life, I mean, my son, oh my God.
Linda's choices still haunt her. It's been 40 years since she was swept off her feet. Greg Scarpa may have left nothing but violence and pain, but Linda is still nostalgic about the life she shared with one of the most notorious gangsters of all time.
He was my life.